We are now about to present the main attraction of our world-famous show.
God damn it, Holtby.
Yeah,
which sucks.
We're live now, so just so you know.
Oh.
But yeah, I mean, you can keep talking about your love of hockey.
No, Anderson is Anderson with a second E, was a phenomenal goalie. Dude had so many saves last night, and I think Holtby had a career high for saves too. But man, we couldn't win a faceoff to save our lives. They doubled the number of faceoff wins that we had. It was just so frustrating. But I mean the goal at the end. I mean it was a beautiful pass. It was a great play, but the Caps kept losing their sticks. Williams lost his stick right before and ended up like kicking his feet out and trying to dive to stop the goal. And we're gonna have to go to Canada. We'll see. The Leafs were playing really, really aggressively. It was a pretty chippy game. There were a few tussles.
Well, anybody that expected politics did not expect hockey.
I didn't know that we were going live then.
Well, the first solid minute is just you talking about hockey sticks. But anyway, all right. Well, welcome. This is the Armchair Constituents, episode 2. I'm Jeff. This is my hockey fan over here is Kramer. I said my hockey fan, the hockey fan. But I guess I'll start with the disclaimer. We still don't have it recorded, but Armchair Constituents, it's just a weekly podcast with a couple guys. We're just talking about our opinions. We're not journalists, academics, experts in any way, shape, or form. Just talking about current events. It's plain and simple. We're not taking harsh stances as the circumstances change. So will we. So let's just get right into it, I guess. Today we're covering the media coverage or lack thereof for the San Bernardino shooting. What happened? I guess it was last Monday, the 10th. Was that it?
Yeah, on the 10th.
But we also have a nice little Huffington Post article that Kramer wants to discuss. But we're gonna talk some more about Syria and the tensions that are ramping up between us and Russia, the failed missile launch in North Korea, the ongoing. We got live updates on the Turkey referendum vote. Let's see, use of the Moab, and what that means in the Middle East. What that means, but you know what I mean. And then we're going to talk about the meme of Trump, his recent turnarounds on NATO, Chinese currency valuation, all that good stuff. But anyway, but first we're going to get into. You wanted to get into an update on Chechnya, right?
Yeah. So last week we had talked about what's going on with Kadyrov and the way that he's targeting, persecuting, and imprisoning. I think it's more than 100 homosexuals there at the time. The Interpreter, which is the English language version edited by Michael Weiss, that initially broke that story. There's some updates through them. It was originally through Novaya Gazeta, and Novaya Gazeta was condemned. I believe it was a group of local imams and people that were upset by the concept of a publication reporting on the imprisonment, torture, and murder of homosexuals in Chechnya. They got together or passed a referendum just condemning the fact that they had quote-unquote embarrassed and emasculated the Chechen nation and offended their religion and offended Chechnya as a whole. Let me see if I can find exactly what they said. Here's the resolution of the Assembly of Islamic Theologians, Leaders of Public Opinion in Chechnya. Here it is entirely. The printing in the publication, Novaya Gazeta, is an absolute lie, slander, defaming the honor and dignity of Muslims, residents of Chechnya, and citizens of the Russian Federation. Given that an insult has been dealt to the age-old pillars of Chechen society and the dignity of Chechen men, and also to our faith, we vow that retribution will be delivered to the true instigators wherever they lie, without a time limit. In addition, we, the High Assembly, call on residents of Chechnya and all decent people to disseminate libelous and provocative information, which is a terrible sin in Islam and other religions, and also entails pain and suffering for many people. We call on every sane person to battle the dissemination, and just calls on the federal and regional media to just condemn them, basically. And 24 clergy in the Chechen Republic signed it. The editor, Dmitry Muratov, editor-in-chief of Novaya Gazeta, sent an open letter to this High Assembly. They sent something back that was just basically like, Dmitry Muratov had said, hey, I think we should, kind of talk about this. We didn't mean to offend anyone. We're just reporting what happened. He just kind of got a middle finger back from him, basically. And Novaya Gazeta had appealed to some of the courts in Moscow, but they've just completely ignored them. So that's the update as it is. Unfortunately, not expected. Not unexpected, I should say.
Nice. Yeah. So, the clergy. So this has nothing to do with Kadyrov. This is just the clergy got together and decided to condemn.
Yeah, I mean the clergy got together.
They went after one guy, but it sounds like they're saying they're going to go after anybody that says anything, has any dissenting opinion on what it is that they're doing or not doing. I guess in their mindset.
Yeah, I mean the big implication is implied extrajudicial measures to sort of mete out justice. There was a reaction from the Chechen mufti that said, they would only act within the confines of the law or something to that effect. But I don't particularly believe that by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people that worked for Novaya Gazeta have died. A lot of them have been killed. They've had several reporters that were murdered. So I mean, this is a publication that's doing really aggressive journalism and has a stance opposed to Russia, or I should say opposed to the Kremlin and a lot of their recent behavior, and they've come under a lot of pressure and violence. So I mean, it's something that is definitely attention grabbing, to say the least.
Yeah. So
So yeah, that's the update for.
Yeah, I'm
for
sure
that.
we'll have another update next week or the week after. That is just coming fast and furious. But so let's segue as best we can into this. I guess it's really just a Huffington Post article. Most people probably know about the shooting a week ago, almost a week ago, in San Bernardino. I don't really need the guy's name, but he went to an elementary school, and it was a murder-suicide. He shot his wife, an 8-year-old boy that was behind her was killed, and then he committed suicide.
Yeah.
But you have... I sent you... So I brought that Huffington Post article to your attention, and it seemed to spur something in you that you want to talk about. It's the article by Glenn Kwan, I guess.
Yeah, Glenn Kwan.
Well, I'm assuming the K is probably silent. I don't know. He's a contributor for the Huffington Post.
Yeah, he's only done 7 articles for them, and they all started in November, December 2016.
Yeah, just a wonderful publication in general, but yeah.
Yeah. So what bothered me the most about this article, there were a lot of things it did. I mean, I'm not a huge Second Amendment guy. That doesn't get my feathers ruffled in the same way that it does for a lot of people. What bothered me the most is just, in my opinion, incredibly disingenuous reporting, and to a degree hypocrisy. So I mean, he starts out the article, the title, "Why aren't we talking about the latest school shooting?" which is absurd. It was all over the LA Times. It was in the Guardian. I think it may have worked its way to the Atlantic, but I can't remember 100%. I think just his thesis that we aren't talking about this in and of itself is, in my opinion, ridiculous.
Just to play devil's advocate, I felt, at least from when I first started reading it, seemed like he was talking like, why aren't they just hammering this, essentially, is what he was requesting. Like, why aren't they a week later still just digging into it and bringing up the same gun control conversations that they do every other time? I think that's what he was kind of going for, because they just kind of reported it, what it was. They talked about it. It was reported widely, but then they moved on. which could just be a circumstance of today's news where it's like there's so much stuff going on, you don't have time to cover something multiple days in a row unless there's just something new to say.
I don't necessarily think that it's that. I think it's because a lot of the puzzle pieces are there. I mean, the quote unquote mass shootings, which is something that I want to dig into in a minute as well. The thing that fascinates us about them are the number of victims, why it was perpetrated, the lack of explanation, the lack of cause. But we know it. It extends from domestic violence. It wasn't a kid like it was at Sandy Hook. It wasn't someone that had, at least to the best of our knowledge, a history of mental illness. It seems relatively straightforward with regards to tragedies like this and how they go.
He claims in the article that he had been, I guess, arrested for brandishing a weapon before. I guess. Yeah. But it was. I mean, yeah, he didn't have a history of mental illness or anything like that.
Yeah. So he makes two claims in this article that really got at my craw quite a bit. Quote, Anderson has a history of criminal behavior. According to a report done by CNN, he once faced criminal charges for brandishing a weapon, assault, and crimes against public peace in 2013. These charges would later be dropped. He also had 2 separate women petition for temporary restraining orders as well. Now, I worked in the criminal justice system for 3 years, and I handled warrants, I handled petitions for emergency protective orders, temporary orders of protection, things like that. It is incredibly easy to get something like this. We have literally had circumstances of people requesting an emergency protective order on a human being that they didn't even know their name, but they felt unsafe running into them in the grocery store. And that is not an exaggeration at all. Someone petitioned the sheriff's department for an emergency protective order because they didn't like the look someone gave them in the grocery store. And emergency protective orders and things like this, these temporary restraining orders, they can be granted incredibly willy-nilly. They used to be very hard to obtain. It were for cases of domestic abuse mostly. But now if, say you verbally threaten me, I can contact either the Richmond police or the Loudoun County Sheriff's Office and say, Jeff threatened me. And there's a decent likelihood that I can get an emergency protective order against you. And now that follows you around. They're incredibly easy to get. The second thing that really bothered me about this is that the notion that the charges would later be dropped. He's leading with this big point about how he faced these charges. Those charges would later be dropped. That is a huge thing. There is a massive difference between having charges brought against you and being found guilty of those charges. And I feel like he just wipes that off entirely too easy. If he'd have been found guilty of those charges, well, yeah, then he wouldn't have been able to own handguns. But those charges were dropped. Now, if it gets to, just again, from my background, and this is again in Virginia, if there is a certain point at which the victim of sort of an assault or something like that doesn't get say in making the charge and pressing charges or not. The police take that over. And if it's for brandishing a weapon, it's for assault, those are charges that the officer is going to be making. So it's not like someone was battered and they changed their mind about pressing charges against someone. That is, there's insufficient evidence, or this is bogus, or he just didn't do it, and the charges are dropped. And that's a huge frustration. The charges were brought against a man and they were dropped. Great. His rights still remain intact. I think that's an incredibly specious argument to make in this circumstance.
Yeah.
But sorry, that was one part of my rant.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's agreed. You can't. I mean, that's. I'm gonna get a little, but it's just that's their narrative, right? Their liberal, like the overtly liberal media, they want to hit these check marks, like mental illness. Yeah. Oh, I don't see that. Oh, well, but he did do stuff before. So basically, I mean, essentially, what I think you're ranting about and what he's alluding to is, like, if you're ever accused of a crime or you made someone uncomfortable, you should just never be able to touch a firearm because you're probably going to do something like this. It's
Yeah, I
just
mean,
a fear
there's
mongering
there.
tactic.
Yeah, I think there is a touch of fear mongering, but I think what bothers me most about the article is the complete nature of how disingenuous it is. It is an incredibly one-dimensional, copy paste article that happens when stuff like this gets reported. It's the same article that gets posted constantly, and his primary uh, uh, issue is that we aren't having a real conversation. Well, you aren't saying anything new. You want stronger background checks, something like that. Great. A disproportionate amount of people that engage in activities like this would pass a criminal background check, and it wouldn't mean anything. And then he goes, you go on to rail about gun deaths each year, and that's what bothers me is that there seems to be a disconnect from reality. Let's just look at gun deaths. In the United States, 6 in 10 gun deaths are suicide. So 60% out of the gate, gun people that are killed or injured from guns kill themselves. Okay. Beyond that, he goes further into saying that, oh, well, the AR-15. Well, the AR-15 is not used disproportionately in gun violence. It's handguns. Okay. Mass shootings is an incredibly poorly defined concept. I mean, there's several different definitions of what it means to engage in a mass shooting, and if you use sort of the number, I think it's 3 or more, including or potentially not including the shooter, his or herself. I mean, you can get numbers ranging from almost 200 to 3, depending on what you look at. So there isn't a consensus on what it means to engage in a mass shooting. But moreover, let's just say that it is 3 or more people dead, including or not including the shooter. We'll just say not including the shooter. Most shootings like that are a result of drug or gang violence. And the drug violence is, while they are connected to gang violence, the drug violence is a direct result of our awful war on drugs. And gang violence is a whole host of socio-political issues that need to be addressed independently of firearms. Violence like this is a symptom. It's a symptom of something else. And certainly removing a tool or making it more difficult to get a tool may do something to alleviate how those symptoms manifest themselves, but it fundamentally doesn't address the actual cause that the symptom represents. That's my biggest issue. I think he's totally disconnected from reality in numbers and types of violence. His argument is specious. It is incredibly frustrating reading this copy paste typical HuffPo article that doesn't actually say anything except the NRA and people that support guns are bad.
Well, yeah, he also touches on the Australian governments where they enacted the mandatory buyback program in, what was it, 1996? Everybody like to talk about that. He ends his article on that stuff, saying that there was no mass shootings from 1997 to 2016.
Yeah,
but
it's either, I feel like there are so many other variables that get involved in this. And again, this isn't even from a pro-gun perspective. I'm honestly very iffy on firearms. I grew up shooting my entire life. My dad made his living as a firearm instructor. I was brought up around guns. I've fired AR-15s since I was 7 years old. I think that guns are like sex and taxes. Unless you teach people about them when they're young and how to engage in those things safely, then you're totally going to ruin yourself later. And it doesn't even come from a pro Second Amendment stance. It comes from this is a bad article that I don't think even knows what it's saying or knows how bad it is. So I feel a lot better after I got that off my chest. Let me check my notes to make sure I ticked off all my points. Suicides, okay. What is a mass shooting? Gang and drugs. Background checks. Yeah. I think I got all of that off my chest.
All right, checked everything off.
Okay, yeah, actually, gonna pause right here for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Oh.
We can just edit this out. All right. Sorry about that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Okay. So I feel like we covered that really well. We hit that. What did we? I guess I should say, what are your thoughts on that? I kind of went on a little bit of a tirade there and had some Kramer time.
I mean, our thoughts are pretty much the same. I mean, it's wait, what did I move the article to? Yeah, I just found it to be ridiculous. I didn't really go into it the same way you did. I honestly just found the article interesting, and I just found that comment, and I sent it to you. I didn't really know that it would set you off like this, so, but I like that we have it recorded forever. But yeah, I mean, my thing is, like, what he's stating, like, but this happened in California that has some of the strictest gun laws. So I just don't, I don't know. I just don't agree. Like, essentially, the only way, and that's what I think he's leading to, is he just wants, like, same thing as Australia, where they have mandatory buyback and you don't have firearms, which I just don't think that could work.
Yeah, I think what's frustrating. I mean, he says, for the record, I don't err on the side of banning guns altogether. Our citizens have the right to bear arms and also to be able to protect themselves.
Yeah, he says that, but then he says,
it's a
like,
token statement.
we owe it to the victims to at least try. Like, he says, he talks about, like, Australia's buyback program and how they've had no mass shootings since 1997, and yeah, he doesn't agree with banning guns altogether. But then he says, like, well, it might not work in America, but we should at least try. So you are essentially saying that you can't say you're not for it, but then say we should at least try it.
Yeah, I think what bothers me most about articles like this, aside from the complete disassociation with reality that they have, which is a big bother for me, it bothers me that they really make no policy statements. They just go, "Wow, look at all the stuff that's happened. We should do something." Hey, what do you think we should do? Oh, I don't know, but we should probably do something. I mean, we live in the most peaceful time in human existence. Crime is at the lowest rates they have probably ever historically been. Types of shootings like this account for such an incredibly small number of firearm deaths. The big one is suicide, 60%. But that completely goes unnoticed because 60% of gun deaths being suicide doesn't get you clicks. It doesn't get you views.
It's also the
one
reaction.
crazy
Like,
man.
People aren't going to react to somebody committed suicide. It's sad, but it's, like, devastating when you hear about, like, children or innocent people being gunned down. So I mean, I can understand why the 60% being suicide isn't something that is what's widely covered. I don't even. Like,
it doesn't pull people's.
I can understand that it doesn't get clicks, but it also just doesn't register with people. Like,
it registers to the people that feel it immediately, but you can't get a national heartache over that. Something that is horrible, like what happened at that school, will get national attention. Will get national heartache. So, but anyway,
let's do another rough segue into into Syria. I guess maybe starting with the a little bit of an update where it came out. I listened to this, and I'm gonna link the podcast in the description. But Michael Weiss was on the Fifth Column this week. I guess it came out. I don't know when it came out. Friday, Saturday.
Yeah, I think it's Friday.
But he touched quite a bit. I mean, he's pretty much an expert on, what would you say, the Middle East and Russia.
He and Hassan wrote sort of the preeminent book on ISIS. I mean, Michael Weiss himself is an expert in sort of Eastern European, Ukrainian, but also Syrian, Yemeni issues. So super smart guy.
But so he touched on He talked about this for probably like 45 minutes, but just about not the revelation, but the news that came out that the strike took out about 20% of Syria's Air Force or fixed wing aircraft that were at that air base or airstrip.
Mm-hmm.
He touched on, like, Russia had drones in the area that cameras were turned off.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I haven't been able to find it, so this is just me saying it. But he says there's video out there that can be seen of the planes, the jets, dropping the bombs right about the time that people started reporting symptoms or dropping the gas. There's that. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to remember everything. But
Yeah, he did a really, really good job of dispelling a lot of the
he talked
ideas.
about NSA picking up intel or recordings of the Syrian government instructing soldiers on how to put the weaponized gas into the aircraft. And there's one more. The people are trying to say it's a false flag.
That it's just chemically impossible for you to strike a container of sarin gas and cause it to leak the way
something
it
about
did.
like it was like a shack or something where apparently like all like this they supposedly are claiming that the Tomahawk missiles bombed the shack, or at some point the U.S. bombed the shack, and that's how the sarin gas got out, which couldn't happen, and also there was no sarin gas there, or at least at the time.
Yeah, the big competing theories are I guess it's not necessarily a false flag, but sort of an alternative explanation for events is that the United States or the coalition allies inadvertently struck a shed or some sort of facility that was housing sarin gas, and it is chemically impossible to make it combust and get out.
You need a it has to mix with an agent, an activator to actually make it.
But that also dispelled the myth that Assad was putting out about kitchen sarin, I believe it was. These people can't make these things at home. It requires a lot of work. It's not meth like in the U.S. You've got to actually know what you're doing to make it.
Well, plus maintaining it is very difficult. Like you could.
Oh, it's an incredibly volatile and dangerous chemical.
But yeah, I mean, I kind of just threw a lot of information out there, but let's see, like the most damning one. I mean, you said maybe not false flag is the claims, but am I wrong in saying? I mean, Ron Paul made a video
thanks, Ron Paul,
claiming completely that he thinks it's a false flag. And, I mean, that was a really bad video.
Yeah, I feel like the arguments or the stances really fall into three categories. One, that Assad did it, which I mean I personally believe Assad did it. I think there's a preponderance of evidence that indicates that Bashar al-Assad gassed his own people. And I think Michael Weiss puts forward very compelling arguments that everyone wants to pretend that Bashar al-Assad is acting rationally, but the man's insane. He's crazy. He is unbalanced. And because nothing was done in 2013, Bashar al-Assad knows that he can get away with everything. I think that the argument that Ron Paul and whoever his guest was in that video posited that, your allies would turn against you if you gassed is completely ridiculous. I don't think they would turn against him if they gassed. I think clearly Bashar al-Assad gassed, and Russia hasn't done anything except now bolster support. The second camp, I think, is, and I know people that I know some people that fall into the second camp that are just not necessarily that they don't think Bashar al-Assad did it, but in that sort of new age of alternative news sources, they're saying, well, I think we should explore the possibility that coalition forces accidentally struck that. But, as chemical weapons experts and people like Michael Weiss have stated, that's just not possible. That's not how sarin works.
He said it wasn't. He didn't say it wasn't possible. He said that
but
it would be a very diminished effect, and it wouldn't release.
Yeah, it would essentially do nothing.
Yeah, it wouldn't release much sarin gas, and it wouldn't have struck the population the way that it did.
Yeah, and the third group of the false flag claims that the rebels did it themselves, but I mean the evidence again that Michael Weiss put forward, that Russia had a drone in the area, had several drones in the area that monitors everything constantly. In the time frame that the bombs were dropped, the cameras on the drones were off, and then they were turned back on after the fact. There's video of, I think they're MiG-29s. Those were the fixed-wing aircraft that got bombed. There's video of MiG-29s dropping right around the time, like you said, that people are getting sick. And I mean, there's that audio recording. To me, it seems just absolutely obvious that this occurred, and that people shouldn't even bother with the false flag conspiracy theories.
I mean, the stuff that Assad came out and basically was like, well, why would I do this? I was working with Russia and America. They were on my side, and like people are using that as a defense, and it's like, this this guy is not stable. Like, and Weiss brings it up too about like the Syrians lie. They lie all the time. It's well documented. They lie through their teeth as much as they can. Like so. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you why he would do it or how it benefited him to do this, but
I read an analysis, and I think it was by Hassan. I know that we keep, referencing the same, few people, but I mean, they are great experts on this.
Well, they're the ones that, they're this is their focus, this part of the world. So
yeah, Hassan put forward an argument that this functioned as a reminder to Russia that Syria is involved in this. One of the interesting things that Hassan and Weiss talk about in their book, ISIS, the Inside the Army of Terror, is that Syria wants to
an updated copy of that book too. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, I've got the updated version. In the updated one, they interview a former IS fighter who provides a lot of detail. Super interesting stuff.
Okay.
But in their book, they argue that one of the things about Syria that we have to remember is that Syria wants to be involved in everything. They want to feel like they're part of something constantly. So, I mean, Russia isn't necessarily sold on Bashar al-Assad. Bashar al-Assad's done a lot of really stupid things that Russia doesn't like. Russia is interested in securing its border and making sure that, someone they don't like isn't there. That's what Russia's interested in. And Bashar al-Assad an argument was put forward that Bashar al-Assad did this to remind Russia that, hey, look, I'm here. I can make life difficult for you, because Russia's been working with Turkey. They worked with the U.S. They worked with Iran, even though that Iran and Syria are tight. Russia is being pragmatic. They're just interested in the outcome of stability and someone that does not want to kill them on their border. And Assad is doing this as a reminder that, look, I'm here too. I can make life difficult for you, or I can make life great for you. It's, we need to work together, and I need your support and your stability. There's also the point that he is a crazy man who likes to kill civilians with alarming regularity.
Right. I've had conversations with quite a few people that are trying to claim that the rebels did it. Or, I mean, I had somebody I was speaking to the other day that tried to tell me that it just didn't happen whatsoever. Like, it was just made up. Like, it was very difficult. I had to calm myself. I was like, it was not made up. I don't know who told you that, but you need
I will say,
I had to walk away.
Sort of tangentially, off of that, it's really interesting with the time we find ourselves in with news media. I guess the step forward that alternative theories have taken, and I mean this can be attributable to I guess some of the email revelations where you have people like Jessica Valenti and John Oliver in coordination with the Clinton campaign to do pieces, and the more politicized and editorial media has become, but also the rise of the groups of news sites like RT. It's really interesting that these theories that would have been written off the map, 3 years ago, someone said, "Oh, this was a false flag." You'd go, "What? No, you're stupid. Stop talking." Now we're like, "Oh no, we really need to explore this possibility." And I mean, it's really interesting, the thought bubble that you can get in, because if you believe one of the two more fringe theories, that the coalition forces or Russia and Syria accidentally hit a shed containing sarin, you can find 1,000 websites that will agree with you, with quote unquote scientists that say it is possible. And if you believe that the gas attack was a false flag, you can also find 1,000 websites that prove that you're right. It's really interesting how maybe the dissemination of information has changed so much that it's incredibly difficult. I mean, I know that from time to time I'll get a little paranoid and I'll think something and I'll be like, "Oh, I wonder if that's a fringe opinion I just don't know is a fringe opinion right now."
Well, I mean, yeah. Like, do you want to touch on just like this missile strike? I mean, they're talking about pretty much everywhere how tensions have ramped up between us and Russia, and essentially like they compared it to the Able Archer and Cuban Missile Crisis. Like it's just like we're not talking. I don't know the validity to that, or if you have anything to say on that.
I mean, I think it's certainly interesting. Obviously, I think tensions are substantially higher, and the way that we are ramping
should
up.
have said like what that means. Like I guess because they kind of hint towards like with like when they say like Cuban Missile Crisis, like they're basically saying like the tensions are to the point where it could just lead to open war. I guess.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult because I feel like it's so related to North Korea. I mean, I feel like with North Korea right now, we're definitely in a Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, North Korea did their failed test launch of a nuke, or I'm sorry, it wasn't a nuclear weapon. It was just a regular ballistic missile. So just a different version of something that can kill a bunch of people if it lands in Seoul. I feel like that is a little bit closer, especially with the THAAD that we're putting up. I feel like that's a little bit closer to a Cuban Missile Crisis. And our conflict with Russia, I think, is just going to be another Vietnam, because with the way that we are ramping up our activities in the Middle East across the board, dropping the Moab in Afghanistan, more boots on the ground in Afghanistan, more boots on the ground in Yemen. We've got advisors on the ground in Syria still, and I don't think it's unreasonable that if Syria and Russia combined push and continue to push, that we will put boots on the ground in Syria, but we're going to be fighting the Assad regime as a proxy for Russia. I mean, that's what I think is going to happen, and I think it's going to go horrible or horribly wrong.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about the other day. I just wanted you to touch on it. Yeah, because I feel like that's what the media is leading to, is they think it's like they're essentially trying to say it's like we're going to war with Russia, which I guess a proxy war is still sort of like that, but it's not necessarily the same thing.
Yeah, I think a proxy war would be better than an all-out war. I mean, an all-out war would get ugly real quick, and Russia's shady. They don't really have military ethics. They gladly just assassinate people anytime that they want, and they install brutal dictators that imprison and torture and murder gay people. I don't know what a full-on ground war with Russia would look like, but it seems like it would. I mean, I don't think we would get in a full-on ground war with Russia. I think we'd be fighting a big proxy war in Syria, and I think also the biggest problem with getting into Syria, aside from Russia, is that Iran is going to be thinking they're next. And that is definitely going to draw the ire of Iran. And getting into a ground war with Iran sounds also horrendous, because that means we're also fighting Hezbollah. And Iran has a wonderful habit, like I talked about last week with Kenneth Pollack. Iran has a wonderful habit of just arming whoever it wants. So we'll be dealing with increased paramilitary groups fighting us as well. So you'd be fighting Syria, with also proxies from Russia. You could potentially be fighting Iran, which means Hezbollah, and you're also definitely fighting the Islamic State. With the backing of whom? I mean, the Syrian Kurds. Okay, I like the Kurds too, but there's a lot of divisions amongst the Kurds. I mean, if we start working with the Kurds directly there, that's really going to piss off the Turks, especially if they get their autocratic vote through, which it looks like they are getting it through by the skin of their teeth, according to these live updates. But some people are calling a little bit of skullduggery on the part of the ballots, which would not surprise me by any stretch of the imagination if the government's tampering with these ballots. It just seems really, really messy.
Yeah. No, it always is. It's just I just try to keep up with issues in the Middle East. So, but you kind of touched on it already. You wanna shift into the failed missile launch in North Korea, like how it's ramping up. I mean, I don't really know how much we can talk on it, other than there was a failed missile test. I did read like essentially like nobody. I mean, we knew. What was it around? We detected it like around 6:30 in the morning, we detected the missile. It essentially just destructed on the platform, or it didn't even really go anywhere. But yeah, I mean, what is that? What does this mean? Because I remember we were talking about it. How it's like just means South Korea is going to war, or they're ending the armistice.
Yeah.
They haven't
So
done anything
I'm
yet.
going.
I haven't seen anything where they're coming out and saying anything. And this is during the what is it called? The Festival of Sun.
Is it our annual pretend we're invading North Korea military exercise with South Korea?
No. This is in North Korea. I thought the Festival of the Sun, where they're like celebrating the birthday of.
Oh, Kim Il Sung.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, that's
what
good.
they
Yeah,
were
that's
saying was
right.
like nobody else even knew, because they give out more media like visas during this time, so there's a lot of foreign media there, and like people were just kind of because they have a 3-day weekend, and people were just kind of celebrating like the festivities. No one really even knew, like inside of the country, that it had happened.
That's hilarious. I know that's that's going on, but I mean, I guess also things that we can touch on. I mean, aside from the fact that they tried to launch it and they failed. I mean, it brings up a lot of interesting questions. I think we would be remiss if we ignored the apparently 600,000 person evacuation of Pyongyang that took place, or that was, I suppose, in the midst of taking place. Started a couple days back. Pyongyang was moving 600,000 people out into the suburbs, and from what I read, the folks that were being evacuated are folks with criminal records, things like that, and the alleged argument behind it is making room in bomb shelters in the city. So Pyongyang was in the midst of a mass exodus. I'm just seeing if I can find any more information on the evacuation. They have a few different ones. I'm trying to find. Oh, okay, here we go. It's the Fifth Column News, not the website. I don't know. All the websites that I'm seeing are
I
not
hadn't
ones
read.
that I would look like I trust.
Yeah, I hadn't read anything about the evacuation. But I mean,
All these
it's
websites
possible
I've never heard
it's
of.
possible that it's been seen or reported on by some of these reporters that are there right now, but it can't be widely released because they're still in the country. You're not allowed to just report on what you want. At least
I'm not seeing
now.
anything on it from legitimate news sites that I would go to regularly. I don't know what the express.co.uk is. I don't know how trustworthy they are. But there's
I mean, if it
Daily
happened,
Cost has something. But anyway, allegedly, if I find anything more about it, I'll let you know. But
sure
apparently, there's an evacuation, or potentially an evacuation drill underway in Pyongyang that occurred or may be occurring. I don't know. I think I think I just think it's a really interesting situation. Because there's so many different scenarios, and I mean, I think we all want to, or we would like to think that it's really simple. Oh, well, North Korea moves, and if they do something bad, then we strike, and it's clean and simple. But I just see there's so many different scenarios. Let's say North Korea launches a missile, it hits Seoul, or it hits.
It's not clean and simple. I mean, even like Trump had wanted to play it up like it was simple. Like if North Korea doesn't back down, we'll step in. But then he went and spoke to the president of China, and he immediately came out and was like, yeah, it's not that simple. He's slowly discovering.
I talked to him for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, literally, he spoke with him for 10 minutes and was like, yeah, maybe it's not as cut and dry as I.
This healthcare thing is complicated. Yeah, but I mean, like say hypothetically, North Korea launches a missile.
There's the thing about, I keep interrupting you, but they talk about like North Korea, like that is what they want. They essentially, like, their entire existence in their minds is built up to like, I can't remember who said it, but it was somebody on the Fifth Column, which quoting that again. But they talk about almost like a Viking funeral, like as Pyongyang burns, so will Seoul. And that's essentially their end game. They have, I don't know if they do or not, but they made it sound like there is no grand scheme to take over the world. It's basically just to go out while taking the enemies with us.
Yeah. I mean, I just know so little about I guess the political situation in North Korea that it's difficult to say. I mean, I think all we can really do is,
Go ahead.
yeah, I think all we can really try to do is figure out at what point do we do something, because I think it is inevitable that we will engage in something. I think it's just a matter of where is our line with it. Like, obviously, North Korea drops a bomb on South Korea, does something, to Seoul. That's a clear indication that, that's a NATO partner that has been attacked. Great, let's go knock it out. Very easy, and we'll have a great rally around the flag war as we waltz through Pyongyang. But what happens when THAAD becomes operational? What happens when North Korea launches a missile and THAAD shoots it down? Well, okay, well, nothing actually happened. No one's dead. The bomb didn't land. THAAD is functioning. Do we go invade then? Or what happens if they launch? They have another failed nuclear launch. At what point do we do something? And it seems like it's such a gray area. Plus, like we talked about last week, complications with what do you do if you hypothetically go to war with North Korea after the fact? Do you engage in nation building? You're going to have a ton of refugees. What's China going to do about that? No.
I would assume,
or South Korea going to do about that?
I would assume that if we wouldn't engage much in nation building, we'd leave it to South Korea, I guess, to unify the peninsula. But I don't know. I mean, South Korea is currently going through some issues with.
Oh yeah, they had their president impeached, and I think they have something like 90, or prime minister. They have like something like 90 days to get a new president or prime minister, and there's a few different people up. Ban Ki-moon is up, and apparently, I did not know this, no one respects Ban Ki-moon in South Korea, apparently, from the articles that I read. And they're probably, because I think it was their previous PM, she took such a hard stance on North Korea. I've heard that folks are interested in taking somebody who's got a little softer stance on it for fear of ramping up conflict. Just be comfortable under the United States nuclear umbrella.
So let's I'm gonna go back to something you said about we don't know, or I can't remember if you said we or you don't know much about North Korea, but
yeah, I don't.
But no, that's the general consensus. We just don't know, just in general. I'm sure high level intelligence probably knows quite a bit more, but the general knowledge of the country is just, it's limited completely. We just don't know anything about them. But I will say, I don't I've heard people say the war, it would be quick and easy. I don't know that necessarily it would. It's similar to Japan during World War II, where it's essentially just fight to death. It is no surrender. I don't think that we would lose at all, but I still think it would be it'd be incredibly bloody. The death toll would be massive. It's just not. I do agree that I think it is, some kind of conflict is inevitable, but I don't think. I just the image of us marching through the streets. It would be bodies. It would be similar to
it's a little too Liberation of Paris-esque.
Well, but yeah, also it would be the same thing going on in the Middle East, where it's you're there's going to be people that are constantly resisting, just fighting to the last breath. Maybe not absolutely everybody, but there'd be a great deal. It's a conflict that is not going to be. It's not going to be cut and dry. Pretty we're not just going to package up Pyongyang with a bow on top and just hand it over to the South Koreans. It's gonna be nasty.
Yeah, I think that the initial onslaught will be really nasty, and I'm sure the fighting would be rough, but I don't know how well the military's trained. A lot of the stuff that I've read.
Well, it's not even necessarily the military. You'd have even the citizens.
True. You have a lot of people that are subject to propaganda.
They would resist.
Mm-hmm.
You'd like to believe, that they're being kept in this bubble and they're starving and everything. Maybe a lot of them would come in and they would see the food that's being brought in, the care packages, but also you gotta think that there's gonna be a lot of people that they grew up.
It's the only way of life they know.
Yeah, they're gonna fight to the death because that's
Yeah,
It's
I
just what
think
they know.
a lot of the stuff that I've read has indicated that, and you can look at some of the things that Kim Jong Un has said. I mean, he said in a speech that the United States is not the only country with the right of like first strike or something like that. A lot of the stuff that I've read has indicated that the North Koreans, they looked at the fall of Saddam, they looked at the fall of Gaddafi, and they know that they can't mount a traditional ground defense or anything like that. So they want to hit hard and hit fast with the weapons that they have first. And I think the initial onslaughts would be very bloody and very difficult. But once those are done, once those are broken, and I think those would be largely symbolic to, like you were saying, when Pyongyang burns, Seoul burns too, so that they could, live up to that. And I mean, I think it would be very aggressive, bloody fighting, and I think that every single member of that military would fight to the absolute death because of how. And I mean, I hate to use the term brainwashed because it's such a pop science term that I'm not sure has any real grounding in reality. But they are so inculcated in this cult of personality with the only life that they know, where you do nothing but absorb propaganda constantly, that you would do something that is against your own rational self-interest because it's the only thing that you...
Yeah. What was Moynihan talks about a I just used his last name. What's his Michael Moynihan. He talks about thing he did, a piece he did for Weiss News, I guess for HBO, talking about basically a North Korean defector that was running a factory. It talks about all kinds of stuff, like have you seen the stuff about the balloons that they send over there with like flash drives and like little care packages, I guess.
Oh yeah, that they send from South to North Korea.
Yeah, but he talked about this factory owner only employs like defectors from North Korea, and he has all these TVs set up in the factory. It's illegal to show propaganda from North Korea. Like, I didn't realize it, but they said like South Korea is very much like I think he said totalitarian government, but I don't know if that is the exact word he used.
Interesting. It's kind of like how it's illegal to own Mein Kampf or have a Nazi flag in Germany. I mean, you get the point. There's a practical point to it. From the U.S., it's really easy to argue, but
they let him air it, I guess, because they know he's doing it just to show the ridiculousness of it all. I don't know. It was really interesting. I want to look it up to actually watch it, but it made it sound like maybe there are a lot of people like they basically smuggle in these DVD players that have USB ports so they can actually watch this stuff. They get them from China. So that's why they send these balloons over with flash drives that have like simple stuff. Like he said, like the guy told him the first thing he put on there on the flash drive was a file of him walking around a South Korean grocery store and just showing them all the food they have. So,
yeah, there's that like reminds me very much.
Say people would fight to the death. I think I guess there would be people that would maybe people that would fight to the death would be people that either just have bought in or they're just so afraid that the regime's not over, and if they flip, it's just going to result in them or their family being killed. I think maybe a lot of people would flip once they saw the life they could have. So
yeah, it reminds me very much of when sort of Soviet premiers or secretary generals or people high up within the Soviet Union would visit the United States. They would be taken to grocery stores, and they didn't believe it. They thought that the amount of food in grocery stores was U.S. propaganda that had been specifically put there to deceive them. And I think it was Yuri Gagarin thought the same thing. So I mean, I don't think it's necessarily inconsistent that when you're brought up in a very propagandized world, that it may be difficult to accept some of these things. I mean, just imagine it from. I guess it sounds so silly, but imagine that it's true. Imagine the reverse of this. We find images and videos of what life is like in North Korea, and oh crap, it's actually all sunshine and rainbows. Things are really good. We've just been living propaganda our whole lives. How much would you buy it? Well, no, absolutely not. I know that's not true. I have consumed news media and academic papers and books my entire life that says this isn't true. I mean, it's got to be a huge adjustment to making something like that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah, to hear one way, not just. I mean, there's probably teenagers over there that live in North Korea right now that have heard it from great grandparents, their parents, aunts, uncles. They've heard the same thing their entire life. So yeah, it would be it would be just a culture shock.
Yeah, I mean, we can't even. I mean, the United States, you can present someone with stats that says global warming is real. We still fight over that. Like, global warming is scientifically real, and there's people that's like, no, no. I saw a news article the other day. It's like, good God, how would you expect anyone to be able to get over 3 generations of propaganda?
Yeah, we're gonna cover that at some point because I have a real
Yeah,
issue
it's
with Trump's EPA and just environmental stances. But that's for another day.
Hey, do we want to save the environment? Nah, I'm going to be dead in like 5 years or something like that. I'm pretty old,
yeah,
so
we can
not
we can
worried.
keep, or his comments, like, we can keep some of the environment. Like, what part? What
You know
part
we
can
live in the environment, right?
what part can we keep, sir? Please let me know.
The part
so
that
I
we
can-
breathe.
So I can. No, we can't have that because he's repealing emission standards and all kinds of stuff. So we can't have the air. He's dumping coal waste in the water. He's putting pipelines across all the wilderness and trying to see if he can't sell the public land. So I don't know what we're gonna do. Guess we can go to beaches. But global warming is going on, so there's sharks everywhere. So no, can't go to that either.
Yeah, I can't go anywhere.
Just start taking pictures. You just make a little collage on your wall. This was the environment.
Places I can't go anymore. My backyard.
But so I guess you got any update on the vote in Turkey? Last I saw it was like 54%.
I mean, yeah, it's right now. It's 51.38 yes to 48.62 no. Looks like
Damn,
the
it
yeses
that,
have it.
Oh, is it? Well,
Yeah.
it dropped when we first. What was like an hour ago? We saw it was at like 90% yes, right?
No. That was 90% in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so right now it's 97.37% in. 24,509,970 votes, yes. 23,193,171 votes, no. And I'm totally sure that there has been zero efforts to stuff the ballots in favor of yes. There's been no voter suppression, nothing like that. It's all 100% legit.
So should we talk about, I guess, like what's changing here? Like we can go over the.
Yeah.
I have this stuff like basically how it works now. I don't know if you already.
Oh yeah,
know.
that BBC article, not BBC.
Well,
the
I literally
Guardian
just
article.
have the Al Jazeera. It's just
that's it. It was Al Jazeera.
with just the little PowerPoint where they talk about so currently like the executive.
Yeah, go ahead and
powers,
read that off. Yeah.
Executive powers are carried out by the president, cabinet. Parliament's responsible for monitoring the cabinet and the ministers. I mean prime ministers because they talk about that at some point.
Or members of parliament or like cabinet ministers.
As well as granting the cabinet the power to issue decrees with force of law. The president's neutrality, like currently, once he is elected, he has to cut ties with any political party, which I find really interesting. I don't really understand that. I just find that kind of interesting. I didn't know, but the president has the power to appoint and remove prime minister and ministers upon prime minister's proposal. That's what I was talking about. They talk about prime ministers and ministers as two separate things.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I guess they voted yes, or it seems that's what's going to happen. So
They're
now,
demanding a recount of up to 60% of the votes, the main opposition party.
All right.
So that's the Republican
so
People's Party.
If yes passes, the executive powers change to the president leads the executive branch. He can issue presidential decrees. He can replace cabinet decrees with the force of law, or he can issue presidential decrees that will replace cabinet decrees as the force of law. The prime ministry is abolished, and Parliament's monitoring role for is removed from the Constitution.
Yeah.
He no longer has to be neutral. He doesn't have to cut ties with his political party. And the president's power, so they're going to introduce a vice presidency that the president can he can appoint and remove the vice president. So I don't know. It says president can appoint and remove vice presidents, ministers, and high-level officials. So they're voting yes. They're getting rid of. He can basically, like, the cabinet can put out decrees, like I guess laws, and then the president can just replace them.
Yeah, he can also dissolve Parliament at any time that he wants.
It says prime ministry is abolished.
Yeah, but there was also, it wasn't necessarily in that, it was in the Atlantic article that I read. He'll be able to, I believe, if I'm wrong, someone please correct me, but I believe he's able to dissolve Parliament at his whim, which is great for democracy.
I don't know that. It just says Prime Ministry is abolished and Parliament no longer is can monitor the cabinet. And then, I mean, his neutrality's gone.
No. It would diminish the role of Parliament substantially and dissolve the office of Prime Minister. So I corrected myself. So I guess I'm still right.
That's essentially what I said.
Yeah.
Well, it is what I said. But yeah, so I guess so that's they're not getting rid of Parliament. And then he has a vice president, but he can remove the vice president whenever he wants. At least that's what they're saying. That could be wrong.
I would imagine very much a Putin-Medvedev relationship forming in that vacuum.
He can also remove ministers and high-level state officials and replace them.
Yeah.
So basically, you disagree with him, he's just going to remove you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so my...
why would you vote yes for this?
Well, there's really interesting background here. It's the way that he has oriented himself. So up until really the election of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who the role of president was largely ceremonial. He's the one that changed this. So it's like, imagine that Recep Tayyip Erdogan was vice president, and then, so all of a sudden Mike Pence just basically makes Donald Trump's role useless and then just subsumes making the country as he wants it, passes a law that says, oh yeah, president's meaningless now, actually gets rid of it. There's a huge amount of interesting history and context and backdrop to this whole thing. Turkey, up until the election of Erdogan, was pushed very, very hard to be secular, and they had a history of the military getting involved to try to keep peace during times of turmoil, and as well as stop some of the religious influence. The military has engaged in coups on 5 separate occasions: 1960, 1973, 1980, 1993, and 1997. The military has stepped in, deposed people, stopped violence. They've always been sort of this independent actor in almost this Clausewitzian way that functioned with interests of its own. They weren't an extension of the government. They were its own independent entity. And I believe it's the 1970s, 1980s, Fethullah Gulen rises to power. And he's got this sort of Mohammad Mossadegh progressive but still religious ideology that he's interested in. And I don't dislike Fethullah Gulen, and I'm a huge admirer of Mohammad Mossadegh. So he's interested in sort of pulling the teeth out of the military and making a very progressive Turkish democracy that's sort of based in very, very broad brushstrokes off of Islam. And it's sort of in the same way that we say the United States is a Christian nation. It doesn't really mean too terribly much, but it's a great way to communicate an idea to people. So Gulen is super, super close with Erdogan, and they work to pull the teeth out of the military. So the military really just can't do anything anymore. They can't get involved in domestic affairs, and that's one thing that Gulen really wanted. He thought the military was going to be a big threat to democracy. Well, they have this big falling out because Erdogan starts to get more and more aggressive with how he wants religion involved in the public sphere. And that plays into this hugely. Or bigly, I guess I should say. And it's only something like 12% of Turks want, a more Sharia-based law. The rest of them are remarkably conservative people that still want secular law, but they want a lot of deference and respect paid to religion. Think about old white people that are Christians here in the United States today. They really, really like Reagan. They say things like, we are a Christian nation. We were founded off of Christian values. But they still want, secular rule of law, those types of people. So it's really interesting the shift that's taken place with time, and Erdogan is appealing to these people. So there's quotes from folks that were happy to vote for him that say, we want this strong conservative presidency. To kind of touch on to the failed coup attempt, the 6th attempt, I still think, only time I'll ever use the word false flag, legitimately, I still think that was a false flag. I think there is enough evidence that indicates. Wait, did that beeping just go off because I said false flag?
Yes, you're on a list.
Crap. No, I thought it was just like a false flag sensor. It's just like some idiot said false flag. Seriously.
No,
but anyway, so this coup attempt. This coup attempt that happened in July. I think there's enough evidence to say that was false, and that it provided Erdogan with one, a scapegoat in Fethullah Gulen, because they don't get along anymore, and he's in hiding in Pennsylvania. I think he's like 2 hours from my house. He's in hiding in Pennsylvania.
Is
I
that
would
the
say he's
guy
hiding.
that they were bringing up? I guess with like the Russia links or something, where they were somebody was trying to have him deported.
Yeah. So Flynn, who was a
Yeah.
non-registered foreign agent for Turkey, was trying to work with Turkey
Yes,
to
I
get
see.
Gulen illegally extradited to Turkey,
Yes, I
which is
knew
crazy.
most of this is flying over my head, but I was like, oh, I see something that I remember. Let me throw this
Yeah.
in.
But
But
the coup attempt gave Erdogan a pretext. One, he gave him a scapegoat in Gulen, but two, he has been able to crack down as much as he wants. 100,000 state and private employees have been fired from their jobs in these purges. 40,000 people have been detained for links to terrorism, which is an incredibly nebulous concept. The Kurds are having their mayors and their governors and their regional magistrates locked up at ridiculous rates. Turkey has assumed control. The Turkish government has basically assumed control of all media. They allow opposition parties to exist, but they control the media so much that they just demonize them. They associate them with the PKK, the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which is a legitimate Marxist terrorist organization that really likes to blow shit up in Turkey. And they marginalize these groups. They fire people. They're detaining people. I mean, it is ridiculous just watching this decline. And it reminds me of Augusto Pinochet. Augusto Pinochet on September 11th, 1973, with some aid from the U.S. government, overthrew Salvador Allende in Chile. And people loved or they hated Pinochet. I know a guy from Chile who works at a winery around here. I found out he was from Chile, so he and I started talking. He didn't get to the U.S. until the early 90s. And I was like, holy shit, man, your parents lived through Pinochet. And he said, Pinochet saved us from socialism and anarchy. Pinochet is a good man. And I feel like Erdogan has those exact same splits. You have that conservative base of people that you are appealing to, and so long as there is anarchy around the country that you are saving those people from, you can do anything you want. And you know what? Oh, we need a stronger executive right now. My hands are tied by Parliament. My hands are tied with all these things that prevent me from keeping you safe and from making the Turkey that we want. That's my take on Erdogan.
that was actually really good. You tied. I wasn't sure where you were going with it, and then you just tied it directly into my question. That was I applaud you.
Yeah, I also hate Augusto Pinochet. He's an evil human being.
We will note that on the official
Yeah.
podcast directory.
Kramer's fun facts about Kramer: least favorite color, yellow. Hates Augusto Pinochet.
So I guess that that vote right now is going to pass, but you said they're calling for a recount, or they can't.
Yeah,
call
the
for a
opposition
recount?
party. I mean, they can technically call for a recount, but the likelihood of them
Well,
getting it
that's
is
what
ridiculous.
that's what I was wondering. I
Yeah.
wasn't sure if you said that they were doing a recount, or if the option was just there,
I mean, they're
possibility.
calling for one, but I find it ridiculous that they would. I mean, it's the some of the things that have happened in the opposition party is ridiculous. Here's from the Atlantic. To bolster support, Erdogan has claimed Turkey could only achieve stability and security under a stronger presidency. A no vote, he implied, would be a vote for terrorists and the supporters of Fethullah Gulen, the exiled cleric living in America that Erdogan has accused of plotting a failed coup. Such rhetoric has helped to effectively criminalize those who disagree with Erdogan's vision, who have been targets of at least 231 violent attacks between mid-January and April 7th. So, I mean, these people are actively being shot at, and these people are trying to be killed. So I don't see anything even remotely close to a recount happening. And if they do have one, I bet they will end up with more votes.
Well, so yeah, there you have it. That's
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be really interesting watching it. I say interesting as a synonym for terrifying. Watching this in the coming days.
yeah. I mean,
Turkey doesn't.
you look at the powers that they're planning to give this guy. It's essentially like,
Yeah.
I can do what I
Uh,
want. You can still pass laws, but if I don't like them, I'll just replace them.
Yeah.
I can remove whoever disagrees with me for whatever reason I see fit. I mean, maybe there is more nuance to it, and they're just saying like the overarching policies, but it seems that's what it seems, as he can do what he. I mean, they're calling him a president, but it seems like he's a dictator.
Oh yeah, I mean he's a president in the same way that Hugo Chavez was a president. When the state media, or Vladimir Putin is a president, when the state media gives people basically nothing but propaganda, allows nominal lateral movement for opposition parties, and arrests people it doesn't like. I mean, I think it's atrocious. But I think what's going to be really interesting is how this is going to play out with how he's going to behave internationally. I mean, Erdogan, the Turks don't. I mean, well, Erdogan does not get along with the Kurds, and there's the PKK, which actively, seeks to blow shit up in Syria. I'm sorry, in Turkey. But then there's also the YPG. There's these people protection units, and they were really big in the city of Manbij. I think it's Manbij, because the United States and the coalition forces support the YPG. They are Syrian Kurds, or they're at least Kurds, I believe, that go around and help us out, and they're really good at fighting IS. The problem is that they have very strong links to the PKK, a terrorist organization that even the United States says is a terrorist organization because they like to blow stuff up in Turkey, and they want a Marxist overthrow of the world, I think. So I think this is going to lead to even greater crackdowns on ethnic Kurds. Everyone is going to be labeled a terrorist that disagrees with Erdogan. He's already done it, but it's going to be even more so because he's going to have no one to stand in his way. And this is going to be, I think, I don't know how this is going to play out internationally, what he's going to do. I mean, I bet he is going to push hard into Iraq, because Erdogan was trying to claim that he owned Mosul, that was his, because in like 1914, I think it was when the Young Turks were incredibly popular, but not that awful television program that I think is so ironically named. When the actual Young Turks had their little officers' coup, it's like, oh well, we own Mosul, so I don't know. It'll be incredibly interesting and terrifying.
All right, let's move into the big trending story of the week, the mother of all bombs.
Oh, dear God.
that we dropped into Islamic State cave complex in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Seeing stuff saying like 90 to 100, maybe more bodies were pulled from the cave systems, but yeah, it seems to be nobody cares about that. They're just obsessed with how big this bomb is and how many clicks they can get from comparing it to a nuclear weapon.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Yeah, the massive ordnance air blast. I hate, like, I saw it the first time. It was like mother of all bombs. And I was like, I really hope that does not catch on. And then every single thing I have clicked on.
Completely intended. I would argue that the mother of all bombs was what they called it before they gave it a better name. Basically,
the Moab has been around for a long time. I'm sure that Moab, I'm sure that the Moab is a military acronym that does stand for Massive Ordnance Air Blast. I personally think that. But I mean, I guess more to the less, people keep saying mother of all bombs. It's just super annoying to me anyway. I think there's been a lot of incredibly irresponsible reporting with how big this bomb is. I mean, The Independent makes it out to be huge and it's ridiculous, when in reality, I mean, yeah, it's a big bomb, but, when you say that it is the largest bomb that we've dropped since, Fat Man, okay, well, sure, technically that is true, but the implication that you give is that this thing is almost Nagasaki or Hiroshima, which is absurd. I mean, the bomb is, 300 tons compared to Fat Man, which was...
It's 10 tons.
Oh, it's 10 tons? Oh, okay.
The smallest nuclear bomb we have is 300 tons, I believe. Let me confirm that. You go ahead and keep going.
Yeah. So let me see here. Yeah, but you have a bomb that is large, but you're making it sound out to be like it is way, way larger than it is. When Now, let me see if I can find the filling
Yeah,
weight. The
it's
blast yield was 21 kilotons on Fat Man.
yeah,
You know,
it's bigger. It's bigger than it's what is it? It's bigger than Little Boy. I think that's what it said.
yeah.
It's yeah, it's 21. So it is it's about the size of Fat Man. This one it says it's come on. You showed it to me and then I can't find it again. It's essentially 8,500 kilograms, 18,700 pounds, 11 tons of TNT. But I believe what I was reading was like the smallest nuclear warhead we have now is like 300 tons of TNT or something like that, or the equivalent. So yeah, it's
Oh
pretty
my.
big difference. 10 to
Oh my
11.
God.
It's like yeah.
Guess what the Russians have?
What?
They have the father of all bombs.
Oh,
Field
cool.
tested September 11th, 2007. Aviation thermobaric bomb of increased power, nicknamed the father of all bombs.
So is it essentially the same thing, or is it
It's
just?
bigger.
But
It's 44 tons of TNT.
but it's the same. Because isn't okay how the Moab works? I thought it it it's air blast, so it
Yeah, it sucks the air out
explode.
of everything.
Does it actually detonate when it hits, or does it? I thought, and I'm probably wrong, but I thought it detonated over top of the site and it like concentrated an air
Yeah.
blast onto the whatever site, and it
Yeah, so
essentially
the
was designed
explosion
completely to
eats the
crush.
air and it sucks the air out of everything. So yeah, it explodes above the ground.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I thought. So the father of all bombs is the same thing. They just
It's bigger. It's 44.
bigger.
It's 44 tons of TNT.
Huh.
I just thought it was funny that they have that. It just seems like such a Russian thing to do. It's like you have the mother of all bombs. We're gonna make one bigger, and we're gonna call it the father.
Well, good for them.
Yeah, good for
But
them.
yeah, I found it interesting. They were talking about it on Left, Right, and Center. I wish I remembered the woman's name that was talking, but basically she was saying, like, what I found it like basically these tunnel systems were like
The rat lines.
well, she stated that we helped build these tunnel systems with the Mujahideen years ago. I was kind of like, it took until 2017 for us to target them. Shouldn't we have known about them if we at least helped or offered aid in the construction of these things?
It's probably one of those things that yeah, we helped the Mujahideen build them, but it's we had some federal official or somebody that worked for the CIA that helped them build them, but in reality, I mean, they're the Mujahideen, which became Al Qaeda or the Taliban, would know where they are. But I mean, us helping them build them sounds like, hey, here's some money and here's some resources. Here's the places you want them to run. Go nuts. I would doubt that we would know exactly where they are.
Yeah,
More
that's
so
what I
that we
was.
just helped them.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. If we like just kind of gave funding, or if we were actually a part of it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of like for me that's like you if just to use a really awful analogy, you give your kid your credit card and you're like, hey, go and like pick up food or something. Where's he going to? Where's your son going to get food? I don't know. You should know. You can't expect us to keep track of literally everything. Hey, where does this hole in the ground go to? That specific one of the millions? I honestly don't know. Oh my God, you have one job.
Yeah, so I mean, essentially, we bombed a cave system,
Yeah.
and we killed a number of people. So
Yeah. I mean, it's.
they don't.
I mean, I think it's just so weird. It was something. The amount of support that this has gotten. I mean, he just dropped a $16 million bomb to kill 100 people, and 83% of editorial boards were just all over it in favor of. Oh, it was beautiful. It was very proportional.
Oh, I love.
That seems.
See stuff on Brian Williams having like an
I
orgasm.
heard
on
about him, but I
national
didn't watch
television.
it.
The beautiful. He did. Well, he did this. He did it. The same thing. I don't know if he went in as depth, but the Tomahawk missile strike in Syria, he was like, "Oh, the beauty! You see these beautiful images of bombs in the night sky. Or I was like, what is going on?
Got a weird definition of beautiful.
But yeah. I mean, I do find it interesting. Like his approval rating is just in the tank, and then he strikes, which did I could be wrong, but I could have sworn he ran on a platform where I don't want to say like isolationism, but like
humble foreign policy like George Bush did. Well, no, not humble, an incredibly arrogant, non-aggressionist foreign policy.
Yeah, where they weren't going to interfere in other countries or police the world and all that stuff. But that I mean, we're going to touch on this a little bit, but that could just be, I mean, Steve Bannon. That was Steve Bannon that had that policy, and now, I mean, he's gone, and now all of a sudden it's shifting to more.
He's not gone yet, but he is quickly making his way towards the exit. We're being
he's
pushed
not.
that way.
He's not a top advisor anymore. That job's gone.
Steve Bannon's got no friends in the White House.
Yeah, but yeah. Well, I mean, we'll touch on this in a little bit, but
yeah.
Well, we'll actually touch on it next. What else do we want to discuss about this? What does this mean for the ongoing struggle?
I don't know. I think that this can be an interesting sort of segue into that. And this is something I really wanted to touch on was, we're talking about U.S. involvement. Is fundamentally, I think what you and I are getting down to is U.S. involvement good or bad? And we had a long conversation about that last week. But, Michael Weiss and Hassan both put forward an article in the Daily Beast that I've linked to you in the chat that we have going on, and I think it would be good to link on the blog on the episode as well, because it's a really interesting read, and it's something I generally wouldn't have supported. But they put forward an interesting argument about how we need to proceed in the Middle East, specifically Syria, because, like I said, I think fundamentally you and I are really talking about, do we get involved? Is it worth it? And they're arguing that yes, we should get involved in this, but not in the way we've been getting involved. Now, they say that we still think, we're the West. We believe firmly in nation states, but we're still thinking about Syria as just a big nation state. They say it's not anymore. It's split into 4 regions. I think it's like you've got the North and the Southwest, and let me see if I can find it out. You've got the South, the West, the provinces of Idlib and Aleppo, and then Eastern Syria. He said, we've got a good little zone of control in the border with Iraq and Syria. It's like we should leave 4 bases there and use it as sort of a safe zone, a base of operations to help push back against IS, to help, keep Assad in check. Because the moment that we leave, the exact same thing that happened when the Taliban would just go into towns in Afghanistan after the U.S. had liberated them, or, Al-Qaeda or IS would waltz through and just take places over after we were gone. The moment we leave, we're still going to have to deal with the exact same problem. So it's interesting, sort of something that I've been thinking about recently. We can sort of try to imagine the world as we want it. I would love if we weren't involved in these affairs. We should just let these things go. But there's a point at which that abstraction, that ideology has to be dropped to say, if we want to live in a safe world, if we want to live in a world, even if we're just doing this from an egotistical point of view of let's make things safe for us, there's going to have to be a touch of involvement here, and this is the easiest, safest way to do it. So it's really interesting. It's not something that I would have initially agreed with. I'm generally opposed to involvement in nations' affairs, but it is actually a very, very interesting argument for why involvement in Syria, but smarter involvement, not more involvement, can lead to a better situation. Oh, here's an update also on Turkey. Sorry, confusion over number of votes counted. Still confusion about the number of votes counted in Turkey, and any result, whether declared by the president or not, should be treated with caution. The below tweet gives more background. Let's see here. Apparently, Turkey's official news agency is saying 97 and 98% of votes have been counted. The Supreme Elections Commission is reporting between only 65 and 70% of votes counted. So perhaps skullduggery already.
Yeah, post a link to that article again.
So yeah, I'll throw it up in our chat here real quick, and it's definitely worth a read. I don't, like I said, don't agree with these things out of the gate.
But yeah, that segues in. You're saying like we're gonna have to increase involvement. So let's talk about oh yeah, I thought I had this up already. Okay, that's fine. I'll put that link in there. Let me pull it up now. So
Yeah.
let's.
I think we should also throw up that video of Ron Paul talking for 20
I have
minutes and
that.
just
I have all of these ready to go to put them right in the description.
making me not like Ron Paul anymore.
Unfortunately. All right, so let's talk about I know you want to talk about the meme of Trump. I'm sure this will be you'll be able to factor this in, but yeah, his recent flip, like on NATO, tampering with like China tampering with currency values, and I think all this ties into Bannon losing favor and Gary Cohn and
Kushner and
Kushner taking over, as well as maybe, and I kind of fought this when you first brought it up, but his daughter Ivanka kind of moving in as one of his advisors. That she's obviously not labeled that, but do we know what she's labeled other than she has an office in the White House for some reason?
And for some reason, the security clearance, I think she's just an advisor to the president. Let me actually,
did they give her that title?
I think. I don't know. Ivanka Trump, American businesswoman, who is currently assistant to President Donald Trump. Began serving in her father's administration as assistant to the president. Let me check the shifting plans. Will become oh, great. She's a federal employee. I bet her pension will be great.
How that makes no sense. How can you go from a fashion designer? Isn't that what she was? A business owner and a fashion designer? The same, like. I mean, it's the same thing with Kushner. Kushner was basically a real estate investor, and Gary Cohn is just an investment banker. Well, he was also a political figure. I don't know if that's new, but he's the economic advisor, along with Kushner, which is I find it interesting that like they move in as advisors, and all of a sudden he's more pro NATO. He's not trying to work with China, and all of a sudden him and Putin are not friendly.
Yeah, I think you and I really have two different takes on this, and mine's a little bit more abstract. And I know that you and I have talked about and I never thought it would come up in a political conversation, but the meme of Donald Trump. There was an interesting, I think it was a three-way podcast between Richard Spencer, Mike Enoch, who is actually Mike Pinovich, Peinovich, and some other guy. They're all of that similar right-wing populist ilk, where they were saying that Donald Trump is no longer important. The meme of Donald Trump is important, which to me is very interesting because meme is kind of abstract in and of itself. Actually, one of my friends, they have a kid who's like 13, and he kept talking about memes, and she's like, "What is a meme? Can you explain it?" And I tried. It went horribly wrong. It's difficult to, I guess, break down. It's kind of a funny internet thing that's been turned into a political tool. It's also a theory by Richard Dawkins for how ideas reproduce. But I think when they say that, they bring up a really good point, because it doesn't matter Trump's positions anymore, because the idea of Trump, the abstract concept, is still alive. And you can watch it with subreddits like the Donald, or sites like Breitbart, until Steve Bannon gets pissed off, in which case he's apparently going to rage an all-out war on Donald Trump, which would be interesting, watching the script flip overnight to see if these people go with Bannon or these people stay with Trump.
We didn't even make it 2 episodes without speaking about the Donald. God damn it. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it's really interesting how the support lies for the man himself. It's almost like a cult of personality that is formed here. But when the concept of a post-ideological United States was first broached, when I first heard it, I didn't buy it. I was still thinking about ideology very statically. Well, Trump's a right-wing populist. It's very clear that ideology is still intact. And okay, he shifted a little bit. Maybe he's getting a little more neocon-esque. But I get it now. I get what people are talking about when they talk about a post-ideological world, or a post-ideological United States, and this feeds into sort of the cult of personality that is formed amongst the people of the internet that support these types of ideas. It's the fluidity of the idea. Any sort of conceptual symmetry or ideological framework is meaningless. And I think people want to talk about the Trump doctrine. I think the Trump doctrine is motion. It's action. It's constant activity. And that's all it is. So there is no there is no ideological adherence. And I know that you've got some thoughts on how he forms ideas, but the existence of the meme of Donald Trump is just it's motion, it's change, it's excitement constantly, and ideological consistency means nothing to people like this, and you can and I have such a hard time describing it because to me ideological systems and consistency are very important. So I couldn't hold a view that I know directly contradicts with the logic of another view. And I understand, I guess that's a very postmodern thing, but so are memes.
Well,
it's incredibly challenging.
I agree with what you're saying. Like it's to me it's a really complicated but you've spoken on it with me enough where I can kind of basically the meme of Trump is whatever he does. Generally, his supporters are just going to be like, well, he knows what he's doing, and they're for it. They don't really have a stance in the matter. It's just they're following him in whatever he does. But I don't know how long that's going to last. At some point, like I think a lot of people voted for him on the platform that he was going to bring jobs, and that just hasn't happened yet. So at some point, like, he's going to lose fit. He's going to have to. And this has been discussed by quite a number of places and people, but at what point, I guess is what I should say, does he have to deliver before people start jumping ship? But and as for his political stances, I mean, he wasn't a politician. He didn't formulate stances. He just had ideas that were constantly changing. I think very much it is completely like the last person he spoke to is the one that can formulate his opinion, and then he speaks to somebody else and maybe his opinion changes. So, but I do find it very interesting. Like Bannon was his advisor, one of his, I guess, most trusted advisors up until recently, and I mean he was against NATO. I mean, he ran on a platform.
Because the wind is blowing against that idea, and so he has to abandon it and pretend that he never held it.
Well, yeah, I mean, he ran on a platform where he was supposed to claim with like the first day that China was tampering with the value of their currency, but now, I mean, I don't know. It seems weird that Kushner and Cohn take over as his advisors, his top two advisors, or not take over, but they move into like his most trusted role, and now all his views are changing. Which, I mean, and they talked about this on the fifth column, how like this is good and bad. Like it's good.
Yeah, it's more predictable.
We can keep people in his ear that are offering solid advice, and they can guide him. Like he's pliable. He's like, they can shape him how they see fit, but also it's bad because you get the wrong person in his ear, and then he can be shaped that way.
It's funny. That's exactly what Jimmy Carter said during the campaign. He said he would rather have Donald Trump win the presidency than Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz is an ideologue and Donald Trump is malleable.
Yeah, I mean, I've said stuff like that before. Like maybe he, like we were talking about it when he was elected. Like, well, maybe he will get the people in his cabinet that will guide him correctly. So far, I haven't seen that, and I really don't think Kushner and Cohn are going to guide him.
No,
but
for me,
I just find it interesting that I mean, this has been said a lot, and it's, to me, I'm kind of seeing the Turkey president declares victory and vote to give him new powers. That's a breaking story, but I mean, you can see the direct lines where like where it's all just coinciding with like this change of heart and this change of I don't want to say policy, but like what he believes.
Yeah, sort of soft power. I don't know. For me, the only consistency that I've ever seen with Donald Trump, and I say this as though I've known him personally for an incredibly long time, but the only consistency I've seen is the nationalism. It's the rhetoric, and it's inflammatory, and it's exciting, and it's nationalistic.
The America first.
Yeah, and I know that everybody conflates it because it shares the name with the fascistic Charles Lindbergh movement. But I mean, there are some ideological commonalities. I mean, it's the big nationalist push. I think the problem is that nationalism requires that you have zero humility at all, and you are nothing but ego internationally. And because nationalism requires energy, and I do kind of want to get a little abstract again. Nationalism has very, very strong ties to fascism, and I don't want it to come across in any stretch of the imagination that I'm calling Donald Trump a fascist. I hate when people do that. It waters down fascism. Kemal Ataturk, Franco, Reza Shah, those people are fascists. Donald Trump is not a fascist, but one big component of fascism is nationalism, and nationalism requires energy constantly. There is an evil that is outside of us. Let's take the woe that we're feeling internally. We push it externally. And right now, those are foes that are going to require physical combat. And I think that push, what that nationalism requires of taking the woe and making it external and working against the external woe is going to get us in a lot of trouble, because a lot of nationalist movements have resulted in a couple of things. I mean, you can look at what Reza Shah did in Iran, ardent nationalist, crushed any type of dissent, basically banned religion. I mean, men had to dress in Western dress, would just kill people if they didn't abandon any sort of identification with a tribe and view themselves as nationalistic. Same thing with Franco to a degree in Spain. Crushes dissent, crushes leftism, and Reza Shah did that. Kemal Ataturk, the exact same thing. These people were admirers of fascism. And like I said, nationalism, as a big component of fascism, requires energy. And it's either looked at internally to root out that thing which is stopping, at least people perceive it, stopping expansion, or it is hidden and projected externally. And I think we're doing a great job of hiding internal dissent and projecting it externally. And that's going to get us into a lot of trouble internationally. And I think we are very quickly going to find ourselves in a conflict with North Korea, and I think also with Syria. And it's going to be, I know I say it a lot, incredibly interesting.
Yeah, I think maybe you and I are. See, I'm looking at it from essentially what they're trying to say now is, I mean, Kushner and Cohn are very much big backers of the global economy. So it's very interesting that he was very with Bannon. He was very like he was against NATO and China and all this stuff, and then these guys take over, and all of a sudden he's opening back up to the global economy and seeing the benefits of supporting that. You're talking more about. I'm
speaking very abstractly.
Yeah, you're
kind of ideologically.
You're kind of talking. I guess maybe you're touching more on the fact that like his military advisors very much have his ear too, which maybe could be leading to like these increased like I guess intervention overseas.
I'm speaking. I think you're speaking very practically in a political way. I'm speaking more academically in a very theoretical way, just from the things that I see, and my concern is quote unquote post ideological. But I mean, to speak more practically to the concerns that you're talking about too, and the shift in Trump. I think there is that moderating component, because Trump is interested in winning, and he won because he was able to inflame this base. But that base isn't going to be there forever. They aren't going to have the same level of energy, and they are that percentage of the electorate isn't going to be able to get him elected again against someone that isn't Hillary Clinton. And I feel like that's the big thing, is that will not be Hillary Clinton. It's going to be hard to keep his ideology rolling the way it is. So, I think there is a pragmatic component to it, but there's also guess who talked to me last part.
Oh, yeah. I think we're kind of on the same page. We're just speaking. I'm just maybe not. Yeah. You're going at it like you said in the abstract way, but yeah, I mean it's very much that. I'm more concerned about like the dangers of it. Like people, like if he can be swayed with a 10-minute conversation.
Oh yeah.
By the last person he spoke to, like essentially all you have to do is be able to present an intelligent idea, and you're gonna sway him. I mean, then that might not necessarily be true. It's just mainly what's he's showing so far. It just seems I don't know. Like,
he seems like a person.
He goes into a healthcare advisors meeting or not, it's something like that. And he's in there for 10 minutes. He's like, "Oh man, healthcare is more difficult than I thought." It's just like, are you expecting all issues to be a 10-minute or less? Like, it's supposed to be a soundbite or a tweet, and that's how you should create.
Boom,
policies?
done. Healthcare solved. Next, taxes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I mean, I get that vibe. I think
I see the danger in that. Is like somebody like today, his advisors are Kushner and Cohn. Like, who are they going to be next week? Like, somebody else might move in. Is Ivanka going to come in and be his next advisor and just start anything she sees that upsets her? She wants to blow it up. Like I don't know. I think it's really dangerous to have somebody in office that is maybe too
impressionable. Yeah, I think for me, when I look at him, I see someone that is not stupid. By no stretch of the imagination is Donald Trump a stupid man, and I think he wants to project a feeling of expertise, so that requires confidence. So he's pushing the confidence angle really, really hard, so that this is gonna be easy. I know what I'm doing, But you know what it makes me think? It makes me think about that episode of Scrubs where Turk has to act like he's not thinking about what he's doing in surgery, because when you can see the gears turning in his head, it implies that it's hard. But if you act like it's easy, people are confident in you and it seems easy. So I think he's putting up this facade of that. At the same time, he's smart enough to know what he doesn't know. So he is just using what I would just call subcontractors. Hey, fix this for me real quick. And they'll present him with something. Or he's learning what is actually challenging and what isn't as he goes. So I don't know.
No, that's exactly what it is. He's learning how to be a president while he is.
No, he said he was going to learn on the job really quickly.
Yeah, he's learning on the job. I don't know if necessarily. I don't know.
Yeah, I would love to say that in an interview though. I would love to, my company is hiring a new CEO, and I would love to just walk in there and I'd be like, you don't have a lot of the qualifications. You're 25. You've never run any type of company before, and like, hey, I'm a good on the job learner, and then be like, you know what, you're bold, let's give you this job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's stupid either, but you can be
a really smart dumb guy.
You can be really intelligent but still be pretty dumb in some other categories. I feel like the presidency is a very complicated office to hold, and to not have any real have no political experience, really have no ideological stances of your own. It's just your whatever advisor stance, whatever advisors around you, their stance is what you adopt. I don't know.
Yeah.
I just don't see that as. I think business wise, he's pretty smart and he's maybe good at making the deal, but I don't know that translates into intelligence in the current realm that he's in.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's neither here nor there. It's I don't know. I think that might be it. That we
I think we've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to have a lot of links in this. We'll have a link to the article by Hassan and Michael Weiss. What was the other link that you wanted to post?
The one you're talking about, the one from the Interpreter.
We're gonna post the one from the Interpreter.
I was going to post the Huffington Post article that you ranted about to start.
Yeah, and the Ron Paul video. Just as a quick aside, do you remember when we were in college and we were more behind Ron Paul and we liked him, and we thought the biggest problem that we had was Rand Paul. I hate how he uses the word. I think I hate how Rand Paul behaves, and you're like, Jesus. First of all, I can't believe I ever thought that I liked a man like that.
Well, yeah, he's been a little disappointing since, I guess. I don't want to say he's stepped away from. I guess he has.
He stepped away from sanity.
So we're gonna post that. I'm gonna post the tweet by Al Jazeera where they talk about the executive powers that are changing in Turkey as the before and after. I guess we already kind of said that. I don't really need to post that. I think that's it. It's just those 3 links, and then I'm gonna post a link to the Fifth Column podcast that we that we basically quoted for half of our
A
discussion.
lot, yeah. We used it a lot.
Oh, and the article from the Daily Beast, How to Salvage Syria, the one by
yeah, that was the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't. I thought it was the one. You want to post the one from the Interpreter too about? No, we don't need to post the stuff about the clergy, do we?
Nah.
Okay.
No, not really.
This is
Pretty straightforward. I basically read their referendum verbatim.
Yeah, and like I guess talk about some of the stuff we're doing. Like we're looking into starting. We got the website up. We just need to start filling it out.
Yeah. So we've basically finished up the
iTunes
website
and
yesterday.
Stitcher and Google Play and all that stuff. Go ahead about the.
Yeah, we basically finished up the website yesterday. We want to, well, inevitably we do want to have the website host the podcast episodes. Jeff and I want to have a blog in and of itself. So some of the longer conversations, maybe some of the more abstract conversations, are just things that the pet projects and the pet stories that we're interested in, that we want to write about on there in a little bit longer form, where you think it out a little bit more, you research it, and whereas the podcasts are a weekly thing, this might be once every 2 weeks, once every month. We want to write something original. So I know we've got that going on. Like you said, we're trying to get on Stitcher and iTunes, which may take until the next millennia, but we'll see.
Yeah, I've heard conflicting statements about how long it takes, but yeah, I mean we're still on SoundCloud, so it's out there somewhere. But yeah. So this one we did like back-to-back podcasts almost, but
normally we record on Sunday and we ended up having to do Wednesday last week, so
Wednesday,
we should be back to our normal schedule.
We didn't release it until what? Friday. We released it Friday night. So, but yeah, the next one we'll record Sunday, and hopefully I can get this out tonight, or at least by tomorrow morning. It shouldn't be too hard. But
and you know what? Caps are playing in Toronto tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes.
All right, and cue music.